A dash of mystery, a sparkle of magic, and all things cozy. Join your host, Elle Hartford, for Cozy Alchemy, a proud member of the Authors on the Air network. Hello and welcome to Cozy Alchemy, the podcast all about cozy fairy tale books. I'm Elle, and my guest today is Moorea Corrigan, author of Thistlemarsh, which we will get to in just a minute. But first, Moorea is going to start us off with a game of two truths and a lie.
Alrighty, so my true truths and a lie are, 1, I had over 20 pets in the course of my life.
Ooh.
Number 2, I can speak Japanese. Or number 3, I'm a classically trained singer.
Ooh, oh, these are fun. And all of them, if they are true, I'm jealous of. And I'm going to assume that the 20 pets are like scattered throughout your lifetime, right? It's like not all at once. Okay.
But yes, that's the idea.
Got it. Usually I try not to ask clarifying questions, but that one was funny. Okay, I am going to guess that the third one is the lie.
The third one is true. I am a classically trained singer. The lie is Japanese. I studied for a long time. I studied Japanese for 5 years. I don't remember any of it. I'm terrible at languages.
I can relate. Yeah, that happened with me in French. Yeah.
Yeah. I also studied French. Don't remember barely any of it.
Right. If I'm lucky, once in a while I can translate something, but I certainly could not be called upon to speak anything.
No, and they laughed at me when I went to Paris, so I'm like, okay, fine.
Fair enough. Yeah, we all have our own strengths, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But so that means that you're a classically trained singer. That's so cool. Nice. So that
yes,
kind of
I'm a soprano, opera. I was in operas in college, and I was trained in all the standard classical songs throughout high school. My plan was to become an opera singer or a writer, so both very stable and normal careers for anybody.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Good thing you had a safety net there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do just have to ask, what was the most unusual pet that you had?
Oh man, it's mostly been cats and dogs. My brother had guinea pigs. We had a lot of fish. My fish experiences were quite dark, so I had one betta fish for a really long time. He was really good. His name was Amigo. And then I had 20 little tiny silverfish, and something went wrong when we changed the water, and they all jumped out of the water at the same time, and we never had fish again. It was a horrible experience. But lots of rescue animals, dogs and cats. So yeah, over 20. We've had over 10 cats and over 10 dogs over the course of my life.
Wow.
And I have 4 now.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. Yeah, that fish experience, that would be scarring.
It was very damaging.
Like that's yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, moving on to better news.
Sounds good.
Book, thank you. Thistlemarsh is coming out at the end of this month. And can you tell us a little bit about it to get us started?
Yeah, so it's a historical fantasy novel taking place just after World War I. It follows a nurse when she is returning home. She's granted her uncle's estate, but there's a catch. It's a dilapidated manor house, and if she can't fix it up within a month, she loses it forever. At first, she thinks that she can handle it. She's hoping she can handle it, but very quickly she discovers she can't, and so she makes a ill-advised bargain with an irritating and irritatingly handsome fairy. So that is the general feel of the piece.
Yeah, this is so fun. And it's so, because I'm about to put you on the spot, so I will admit as context, like I also, podcast listeners will know I have a background in history. That's how my husband and I met. So of course I was like really excited to talk about this.
I'm glad.
And yeah, and especially the connection of the history, but also like fairy folklore. So I am going to ask you up front, Do you have a favorite, one or the other?
So I think that they're really interconnected, so it's hard to choose a favorite, but
Mm.
it's also hard because I started reading fantasy novels and also reading like classic like Jane Austen, Jane Eyre around the same
Mm-hmm.
time, about when I was 8. So they kind of
Mm-hmm.
influence each other. But what I think is so cool is that, like, for example, like the novel Jane Eyre has so
Mm-hmm.
many references to fairies in it, and you're like, how was this in here this whole time and I never knew? Like she
Yeah.
gets called a fairy by Rochester, and like she's
Yeah.
called a changeling, and the first time they meet, she thinks that his dog is like a fairy creature. Um,
Right.
and so, yeah, so there's all these elements that are in there, and it's so cool. Um, and the historical like details that you can use and then go, oh, wait, like that's a bit of folklore. Like that's an element of this culture that is in this building or like in the statue. And it's all right there in that one place that's really packed. And I went to school in Edinburgh, so it's like every inch of that place is like
Oh
steeped
gosh.
in some kind of folklore. So I think that
Yeah.
really together, that's kind of a cop out. But also, like if I had to choose, I think I listen to more history podcasts, for example, than I do folklore podcasts. But I listen to them both. I listen to them both.
Yeah, yeah. I really appreciate that method of figuring out which is your favorite. Is which podcasts, like which topic do you listen to more podcasts on?
Right, exactly. What do I like consume when I'm not like doing research? And I'm like, oh, I'm probably watching Time Team on the BBC more than I'm watching like fantasy films. So maybe that's because there's less of them. I don't know. But they're both great. I love it.
Fair. And I have to admit too, I really like that answer of the way that they're intertwined. I mean, I know you said it's not, I don't think it's necessarily a cop out because it is true, and it's such a good reminder of um yeah, like just the way that our culture and our beliefs of any time period just permeate everything, right?
Yeah, it's totally true. And it's also like if you follow the history of any kind of like fantastical creature or anything like
Mm.
that, there's such a rich historical background and everything. It's like you think, oh, like unicorns, and when I'm like, I think 80s. I grew up in the 90s. I
Ah,
watched The Last Unicorn. That's what I'm
yep,
thinking. But
yep.
then it's like they're a representation of like Christ in some like tapestries, and then they're like
Right.
also this like Pliny the Elder is drawing them in his old manuscripts, and you're like, whoa, this is crazy. There's so much interesting information. So, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. That is, I don't know, you can kind of see the bookshelf behind me is largely like me collecting like research on fairy
Yeah,
tales,
mine as
unicorns.
well.
Yeah.
Right here, like all of this. That's the Briggs
Nice.
collection of English folklore, and so
Oh,
totally
nice.
100%.
Yeah. It's a very good excuse for just collecting books that look interesting.
Exactly. And since I've like got my book deal, I'm like, oh, this is a business expense. This is a business expense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, but on that kind of like research note, if we're steering a little bit more towards history, I was really interested in hearing you talk a little bit about setting a book when you did, because 1930s, I believe you said in your
It's
introduction.
19 just after the First World War, so it's actually
Yeah,
1919. It's
90,
immediately First World
you're
War.
right. I'm so sorry. Yeah, because
No,
I
no,
had
no,
written,
you're so
yeah,
fine.
interwar period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what it was, is I was skipping ahead because I know that on other podcast episodes we've talked about like the golden age of mysteries, and we've talked about like this kind of time period in general, and like historicals. Um, but specifically the interwar time period is fascinating, I think, especially in the context of today.
Yeah.
Um, just like this time period where um, especially we as the readers, know that something is coming, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's this time of kind of social reckoning as well, especially in
Mm,
the First World War, because it's like, okay, things we know as the reader that the World War II is on the horizon, but they didn't know that. They thought it was
yeah,
the war to end all wars. And
yeah.
so there's cultural change, there's class change, like even in the servants were leaving service because there were jobs, in the cities that were more lucrative and also more flexible. And then also it was like social change, as in people could start kind of marrying where they wanted to marry. And you could walk wherever you wanted to, and you could wear whatever clothes you wanted to, which was not available before that. And it's also, there's like the wound. Everyone's walking around with the wound of the First World War in their bodies. Like everybody knew somebody who died, and many people knew so many people who died, and it was like this huge hole in their lives. And an entire generation for the British aristocracy, an entire generation of men were gone. So that impact is so like radiating out of that time period, and it's really interesting to explore as like, okay, everything's changing, so why can't we have these sort of changes? Like, what does that feel like in that period when everything is moving in a different direction, especially away from the establishment and more towards like a freer world? I mean, not exactly free, but freer.
Yeah.
So it's super interesting.
It is.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, not at all. I've been working my way through Agatha Christie's like Poirot novels. Poirot. I know. You can tell I'm like,
I know, you're so good. You're so good. It's always that freaking, what is it? Is he from Brussels or Belgium? I don't remember,
Belgium. Yes. Exactly. Belgian detective. Yes. Anyway, but no, so I've been working through her books. Haven't got to Marple yet, but I've been working through these Poirot books, and it's fascinating. Obviously, people talk a lot about Agatha Christie in context of like being a mystery writer, but all of her books, there's characters complaining about the young people, and there's characters, like you say, who, my husband was lost in the war, my brother, my father, whatever. There's so much of that. It just comes up in the plot, even just like not necessarily on purpose or as a clue or anything. It's just there,
Yeah. And I think it's also an interesting period. So like, Julian Fellows. So he, for people who might not know, he wrote Downton Abbey. He wrote Gosford Park. A big hand in those kind of films and books as well. He's written books. And it's really interesting lately because he was talking about Downton Abbey and kind of the end of that era with a new film, which, maybe it won't be the last film, but they're saying it's the last one.
Always. Yeah.
But what he said was, and I think it's serious, but it's also like they're very true, where he's like, I won't go past a certain year in the 30s because then in the British aristocracy, I have to start dealing with fascists. And the second you have fascists in your like fun period drama, it is very different. It has a very different tone, and you can't have it anymore. And I think that's true. Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of really good writers who tackle fantasy elements like in World War II and also in the, Cold War era, but it has a different tone. And mysteries in those eras also have a different tone that you can't necessarily recapture than this interwar period where that kind of horrible atrocity elements haven't happened yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And because you have like, you're talking about fantasy elements, like, do you see one as underscoring the other? I know we've talked about how interwoven everything is.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there was in real life, historically, there was a deep interest in like fairy and folklore culture at this time. It's like just at the very end of the Great Folk Revival, which had like some good things like, Irish independence, things like that, but it also had like a huge rise in nationalism and things like that too. But the less fun parts, but the fun parts are like, for example, Arthur Conan Doyle, we're talking mysteries. He published a paper, I think it was in 1920, where he was like, fairies exist and here are the photos, like, and I believe in it. And you're like, okay, like I see this hope and like like they're struggling to find something to like believe in this period that's been so devastating, and like they're trying to find some healing, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, that's so cool. Well, and kind of on that note, like your own, obviously you have the presence of fairies, your main character, but also you do have kind of like an addition to the story throughout. You have these short stories from Lady Blakeney and Lord Threadneedle, which are fascinating and fun. And can you talk about like how you came up with them, how you decided, which ones to include, that sort of thing?
For sure. So they are kind of inspired by that great folk revival element. So it's like a lot of them are sort of adapted from like Grimm's fairy tales or like Lady Wilde, who's an Irish fairy tale collector. So she was doing this in the I want to say like, oh man, late 1800s versus the Grimms, who were more early 1800s. And then you also had the Langs doing their beautiful fairy books all at the same time. So it's kind of in the cultural zeitgeist of the time of like, oh, we have these exciting fairy books. We want to have independent cultures for different places. And so they're doing these collections. And what I love about them is they're so short and sweet. You're almost like, whoa, was that the whole story? And it's like, we really extrapolated like from there with all of our retellings and all that stuff. Wow, I'm surprised this could be a 90-minute full-length film from this, but it totally is, and it works. So that's sort of like what inspired those. My editors, when I first wrote them, they were like, "Oh, these are perfect. We need a couple of them." And then I wrote a few, and they were like, "Okay, these are the ones that we like best." So.
Oh, okay. So it was kind of collaborative.
Yes, it definitely was.
Bit.
Yeah.
I like that. But that also means that you have extra stories laying around that you wrote that didn't make it into the book.
I do. I have a couple. I don't know if anyone wants to read them. They didn't make the cut. They're on the cutting room floor.
But have you ever thought like down the line of like doing a little collection of them or anything?
I hadn't thought of that. Not really, but I know I'm working on some new projects, and at the moment I'm trying to include that like extra metatextual element in them. And so I'm like, okay, what kind of thing can I take from this period or this period to work into the story that makes sense? So yeah, it's fun. I like that part.
Yeah, very fun. Okay. So I'm seeing like the theme will continue, as you said.
Knock on wood.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. Okay. Oh, that's right. It's a slight pivot, but I had to include it in my questions because we are talking about restoring an old manor house. Do you have your own experience with house restoration?
I do not. I am not a house restorer. I do gardening, but only outside and very limited. What I will say is I moved back into my childhood home right before COVID, and I was working on my dissertation, and then COVID hit, and I was living in my childhood home, and oh my gosh, how many, like, I was like overwhelmed on social media with all of the like house projects that were happening. And I think that really informed the book because I was working on it just at the start of COVID. And I was like, oh, a house restoration. Perfect.
Yeah. This is the thing everybody does. I like
not including me, but my mother was working on it, was watching like, how would you do that? Okay. And what I will say too is that for research, what was really helpful is the National Trust and places like that. And also just, I think, people who own old houses, they post a lot about restoration and about how they would clean things. And there's even like documentaries on them. So I watched a lot of stuff like that where they're like, there was this particular Irish house, and I think it was a Netflix series. I don't know if it's still on Netflix. This was a long time ago. But they had these big horns that were like an ancient elk that used to live in the UK. And it inspired an element of my book. But they had to be so careful about restoring those. And that was like a huge influence on me as I was writing. I was like, I have to have those horns in here. Gotta get them in.
That's so fun.
Very fun to design the house.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I bet. Yeah, I bet. Now, okay. So Thistlemarsh is your debut novel, right? And you do work in the publishing industry. But has it been different being on the author side? Like, what has that been like?
Yeah, it has been different. I work in academic publishing, so it's like a totally different beast in a lot of ways, because you don't have as much hands-on time with the authors as far as editing the structure of their book or little details. Usually it's you get the book, you send it to experts who know more than you do about the subject. So it'd be mine is like political science is what we publish. So it'll be like an expert in political science, and we send it out, and then they tell us whether or not it's like a contribution to the field, and then we take it back and we say sick, like, or either way. So for the trade publishing side, they're a lot more hands-on, and I mean, my team has been amazing throughout. Like, couldn't be more excited. What was so fun is that the UK team and the US team are both with Penguin, so they got to work together through the editing process, and that was so cool. Yeah, nice. To see everybody's notes and get all that feedback, and that was really, really awesome. But kind of totally different beasts in a lot of ways.
Fair. Yeah. Fair. Oh, gosh. Okay. And so I hadn't realized if you're working in publishing political science too. Yeah, that's, because you're talking about, like writing the book like during COVID, and it just got me thinking about all the different ways we're talking about historically the way the time period infects like the culture and the beliefs, but also now. It's so interesting. Like, do you feel like today the world at large also gets reflected in your writing?
Maybe. I think most of the time it's almost like an escapist sort of thing when I'm actually writing, but I'm escaping to a time period. I usually choose, I feel, quite fraught time periods. So I'm like escaping into an equally fraught time period, but at least I know what happened. So that there's some security in that. I think a lot of people have been talking in the like cozy fantasy community, as well as horror. It's like people turn to either like the scariest thing they possibly can, or the most comforting and stressful times. And I think that we can really see that in the current trends of publishing. So yeah, I mean, it's a bummer, but it's great for fantasy and horror writers.
True. True. And we were just talking about this the last episode that I recorded, right, where it's like I don't know if you have felt this way, but I've encountered conversations where it can feel kind of like an either or like a one must be better than the other, the really dark or the really light, you know. But I think it's just a reflection of what you need in that moment, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's like I love I've actually gotten more into horror through some friends. I used to be a scaredy cat. Now I'm less of a scaredy cat. And I watched Sinners, and that movie was so amazing this year. Also a folkloric kind of movie with a vampire element, all that stuff. And then at the same time, there are movies that you're like, well, this is not really a cozy, but I'll say it's a cozy. The latest Knives Out film. I'm like, yes, this is perfect. I want both. I want like something that I can feel like renewed by, and I also need the excitement and scare factor. So yeah, I don't think either's better than one.
Nice. Yeah. Well, building off of that, what's next for you? Are you going to try writing a horror?
No, I don't think I have the skills for a horror. Although what I will say is I think that my book is a cozy, but it's not a straight cozy in the way that a lot of cozies are. And I love to read a cozy, but it does have some darker elements. So I think in some ways I don't have it in me to write a straight cozy either, but it will. I am a happy ending, like maybe a little bittersweet, but nothing bad endings or final girls or anything like that. But no, at the moment I'm working on something I can't necessarily talk about, but it is kind of a historical fairy worlds, kind of in the same world as Thistlemarsh, but a different period in history. So
cool. Yeah. Is that part of the fun of it, like getting to skip to new historical time periods? Yeah,
absolutely. I'm not just like a fan of World War One and the post-World War One. I'm like, oh, the French Revolution. Oh, the Regency period. Oh, the Gilded Age. I'm all over the shop with my interest in the historical.
Fair. Well, and I imagine that in addition to giving you an excuse to collect more books, helps like keep it fresh for you writing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. And it's also, there can be different folkloric twists depending on where you are in the world. So it's like everybody of course has their own folklore, and so some of the things that are happening culturally in a historical moment might feed into a different folkloric element from, their past. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, that is a lot of fun. Yeah, I can see that. All right. Now, I ask this of everybody, but if you could go back and talk to yourself, like when you were just starting out, maybe just starting out writing or just starting out in your publishing career, what advice would you give to yourself?
I think my advice would be that you need to have something complete before you can make it better. So,
Ah,
focusing too much on like the beginning, I would rewrite the beginnings of books so many times. And in a way, it was like I was shooting myself in the foot because the real meat of the story is having it all the way finished and knowing what's going to happen. And then like going back later. And there was this really good video that I watched where um, somebody, like a sculptor, was showing their process. And it was like a big lump of clay. And you're like, a big lump of clay. And then they showed the next day. And it was like, okay, I kind of see a face. And then it kept going deeper and deeper and getting more detailed. And I was like, oh, this is a really good metaphor for this kind of process where you have to start with a lump of clay. It has to be there, and then you can start refining it. So that's my advice I'd give myself.
oh, that's a good one too. Because I think I've seen something similar said where like you can't edit a blank page, right? Like you just
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
like get it out. Yeah, yeah. But also
exactly.
to
Oh,
get it
and
done
the
because yeah.
oh yeah, but it's like somebody else said it, I don't know who, but I felt like this was great advice, which was um, people buy bad books all the time, but no one buys an unfinished book, and you're like, darn it, you're so right.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, like I gotta get it done. All right.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I think you make a good point too about you have to have it finished in order to be able to put in like foreshadowing or like knowing is this character important enough to be in the first,
And like, are
chapter or
things
what.
going to
Yeah.
change? You know, like things,
Mm.
I mean, my book has changed so much from the beginning to the end. It's like, oh, well, this character is so much less important now or doesn't exist anymore. Or, this motif doesn't exist anymore. So starting on it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Fair, fair. Nice. But okay, so you it's you'll continue moving forward in like with the foot in both worlds, academia and trade, you think?
I think so. I mean, right now I work as like an administrative assistant slash editorial person. I have a lot of jobs. We're a really small team. So I kind of do everything, which is great. And I got my master's in publishing. So I'm doing what I got my later degree in
Okay.
one part. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
my undergrad was in lit. So I'm doing kind of both, which is great.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun as like somebody who's interested in publishing to see both sides. So at the moment I'm like, woohoo, but we'll see like down
Yeah.
the line, will I be too tired? We'll find out.
Fair enough. I really appreciate the fact that you're using both your degrees, though.
Thank you. Yes,
Well
that's right.
done.
My
Yeah.
education was worth it. Let's go.
Very encouraging. Okay. We will get to our last question in just a minute. But first, so I will have obviously like your bio and like your website and stuff like that in the show notes. But is there any way that you want people to find you online specifically? Like you super active somewhere rather than somewhere else?
More than anything, I'm active on Instagram. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's where I post
Nah.
stuff. I have a website and a Substack as well.
Nice.
Check me out anywhere that is happening. I post the most on Instagram at the moment.
Fair. All right. It's a good place to start.
Right.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So, final question, ending on a high note. What is one win that you've had in the past week? It could be anything.
So I had a publishing win, which is so exciting.
Ooh,
Yes,
nice.
Thistlemarsh was selected for the Goodreads anticipated books of the month, which is
Ooh.
great, and also
Yeah.
Indie Next, in the Indie Next like selection by booksellers. So very exciting there. And then
Yay.
on a personal side, I booked my upcoming writers retreat with my friends. So I'm looking forward to that
Oh,
too.
fun. Can you tell us where you're going? Even just like generally.
Yeah, I'm going to. We usually go into the mountains in Colorado and book a cabin, and we're three couples, so I've known them since high school, and we've all stayed quite close, and so it's a real treat.
Yeah, that's so cool. I just ask so that I can live vicariously through you. That sounds like a lovely time.
After I do it, after I do it, I'll post photos on my Instagram. Once no one, we always change it, so it's never the same place.
Awesome. Well, all right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It was such a delight to talk to you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem at all. And like I said, like your link and everything will be in the show notes, so listeners, definitely check that out. And I will talk to you next time. Cozy Alchemy is brought to you by Authors on the Air, and our theme music is by Cyberwave Orchestra. For everything else, blame Elle. You can find her online at ellehartford.com.